遭到了灵魂攻击，有敌人。
已经82亿年了，
你只能大家小心！
我在这等你。
牵制住2名妖族，饶河！快！
这次我可就要一步登
王，
交给我了。
问天发的是你，这入口出现了。
这一切绝非巧用外合。
阳，
你这么做不是一次？
可恶！
孩子，来吧。
灵魂的疼痛越来越强。
Hello everyone, welcome to the Alrasta channel. Here, I will share spoilers for SwallowedStar episode 195. Remember, this is based on the novel, so it won't be 100% similar to the Donghua version. Okay, without further ado, let's dive right into the story. Continuing the story from episode 194. After the clash of power between King Lifefall and King Sevenblade ended, a sudden piercing command echoed, ordering everyone to flee. Sealed Star moved very quickly downward, and even though the formless pressure beneath him broke, the energy of the Star Tower formed even more violent ripples. Some who fled were hit by attacks from other warriors and thrown backward into the crazy energy of the Star Tower. Whether it was low-level Immortal Kings, Pinnacle Immortal Kings, or even Limit Immortal Kings who were directly hit, they turned to ash. Their weapons were destroyed, and some of their world rings shattered. Luofeng was shocked to see the terrifying power of the previously stable formless barrier vortex, now broken into a source of crazy energy that easily destroyed many warriors. Anyone who touched it would die without a doubt. Amidst this chaos, Luofeng had different intentions. He was not at all interested in the Sealed Star or killing other warriors like the other warriors were doing. What caught his attention was the powerful call of the Star Tower itself, a call that even surpassed the power of the gold armor and soldier armor. Luofeng did not believe it was a coincidence that he was called to this place, just as the Sealed Star fell. He was convinced that there was something special behind all these events. Therefore, he chose a passive strategy of simply following the group, staying close to powerful warriors such as Tianzhen and Kang Qi, and quietly observing every detail that occurred. Until now, nothing special had happened, but Luofeng remained convinced that during the process of the Sealed Star's fall, something special would be revealed, and he patiently waited for that moment to arrive. Not long after, the situation changed drastically when the elite demon race team led by King Qi Mang attacked them. This demon race group had 12 soldiers with 6 limit immortal kings, far stronger than Luofeng's team, which only had 5 members. Qi Mang was a pinnacle immortal king skilled in soul attacks, who had even fought Tianzhen to a draw before. With the double-headed dragon's control of time, Luofeng's team was trapped in a very uneven battle. Although Luofeng moved very quickly with Shu Wu's wings and managed to kill 4 pinnacle immortal kings with heavy arrow, Kang Qi from their side was pushed into a dangerous area and was immediately destroyed. As for Ku Wu, he was attacked by 4 limit immortal kings at once and could barely survive even with the help of heavy arrow, who had strong defenses. In another direction, Tianzhen was in extreme danger while fighting Qi Mang and other limit immortal kings who burned their divine bodies. When a huge hammer attack hit him and sent him falling towards a dangerous area, Luofeng immediately flew to his rescue. However, when Luofeng held back the attack to slow Tianzhen's fall, Qi Mang launched a soul illusion attack that caused Luofeng to lose control of his body and fall as well. Heavy Arrow, who saw his master fall, screamed in fear, while Tianzhen looked sad and rushed to catch up with Luofeng. But behind his fake sadness, Tianzhen was actually very happy because his plan had succeeded. It was revealed that Tianzhen was a soul control expert who had long planned this betrayal. He had fought Qi Mang several times and managed to control his soul on the 3rd encounter, making Qi Mang his soul slave without anyone realizing it. With the demon race's weak communication system, no one could detect the change in Qi Mang. Tianzhen even managed to control 2 other limit immortal kings from the demon race, including King Mist. Tianzhen immediately saw a golden opportunity upon hearing about Luofeng's wealth from the treasures of the sacrificial tower, and he ordered his soul slaves to attack their own team. The entire battle was a perfectly planned charade, in which Tianzhen pretended to be attacked and injured to lure Luofeng to come to his rescue, then allowed Qi Mang to launch an illusory attack to knock Luofeng into a dangerous area. However, thousands of years of training had perfected Luofeng's mental state, enabling him to break through the illusion. When he regained his senses, Luofeng immediately recognized Tian Chen's betrayal based on two suspicious observations. First, as an expert in soul attacks, Tian Chen should have been able to prevent Qi Mang's attack from hitting him. Second, instead of resisting the force of the attack, Tian Chen had pushed Luofeng slightly when he was grabbed. Although it was too late due to his significantly reduced speed and the proximity of the dangerous area, Luofeng prepared to use the Fire God Origin Crystal to detonate himself along with Tian Chen. But suddenly, an irresistible, mysterious energy enveloped Luofeng, and a voice echoed, calling him. A portal appeared right in front of him, and the mysterious energy guided him into it. Luofeng, holding the Fire God Origin Crystal, was immediately sucked through the portal and left the battlefield, while Tian Chen, who thought his plan was perfect, could only watch in shock as his target escaped. Tian Chen, who had nearly been killed by Luofeng's Fire God Origin Crystal, felt immense relief when he saw his opponent sucked into the portal and disappear from the battlefield. Although his plan to kill Luofeng had failed and his true identity as a traitor had been exposed, Tian Chen had no regrets whatsoever. For him, preserving his life was far more important than gaining one more enemy. He felt that this was his lucky era because he had managed to control 3 limit immortal kings from the demon race, including Qi Mang, whose power was almost equal to his. With this hidden power, Tian Chen planned to use the chaos of war to accumulate more wealth and increase his power until he no longer had to fear Luofeng. He immediately devised a new strategy, which was to let his demon race slaves finish off Ku Wu and Heavy Arrow first, then secretly get rid of the other demon limit immortal kings who were not under his control in order to reap maximum profits. On the other hand, Luofeng, enveloped in mysterious energy, flew through a beautiful and winding, colorful path. Along the way, he could see large stars sealed around giant pillars and various treasures with powerful energy, although everything appeared vague. He immediately contacted Heavy Arrow mentally through the Slave Master Soul Bond, warning him about Tian Chen's betrayal and his suspicion that Qi Mang was working with the traitor. Luofeng ordered Heavy Arrow to inform Ku Wu and immediately flee to join the other human soldiers, then exit the Star Tower and wait for him to return. Although Luofeng desperately wanted revenge for nearly being killed by someone he considered a brother, the military system strictly prohibited the killing of allies under penalty of death. However, Luofeng realized there was a loophole in the system because the scan had limitations, and he planned to kill Tian Chen after retiring from the army when the military system no longer protected the traitor. After flying through a long passage, Luofeng finally arrived at a mysterious temple that was so vast it had 9 giant pillars over 10,000 kilometers tall. Above the temple floated countless sealed stars that looked like galaxies. In the distance sat a terrifying figure with a lower body like a long snake and an upper body like a human, with a dangling purple beard and drooping eyelids. Although it did not exert any intense pressure, its enormous and endless presence made anyone feel like a helpless ant. Luofeng realized that this creature was far more powerful than Universe Venerable Shi Huo, even approaching the power of his master, Chaos City Lord, most likely at the Universe Master Level. Due to this enormous difference in power, Luofeng decided it was better to be obedient and respectful. The ancient creature named Pu Ti revealed that he was the guardian of the Star Tower and the first disciple of the creator of the Star Tower, who had been waiting for him for too long. Pu Ti explained that he was originally the creator's first servant, but over the course of countless years, he had managed to become a universe master and was accepted as a disciple by his master. The leader of the Flame God race was the second disciple, while the creator devoted his soul to the Flame God race and the Earthling race. Pu Ti revealed the shocking fact that 2 candidates from Earth had come before Luofeng, both of whom failed. Luofeng was the third candidate, arriving 8.2 billion years after the second candidate. If Luofeng succeeded, he would become the leader of the Earthling race and the Master's third disciple, equal to the leader of the Flame God race. However, if he failed, only death awaited him, just like the 2 previous candidates. Luofeng was stunned to hear all this, his mind filled with questions about who exactly was the mysterious master who created the Nameless Manual and Star Tower, and specifically produced the Flame God race and the Earthling race. Pu Tai explained that Earth was just the name Luo Feng gave to the planet he lived on, while the first candidate called it the Shanhai World, and the second candidate called it the Star of Origin. The Master had spent significant effort exploring the universe to select a special planet and nurture a powerful race, namely the Flame God race. The disciples of the second Master, who came from the Flame God race, did not submit to anyone and formed their own Flame God territory, becoming one of the powerful races of the universe. Although the total strength of the Flame God race was far greater than that of the human race, they had a leader who was a universe master with special treasures from the Master, so they did not fear the threat of the human race. When Luo Feng asked about himself, Pu Thi revealed that his name was the opposite of Thi Pu, the author of the 10,000 Soul Control Manual. Unlike the ambitious second disciple, Pu Thi chose to remain in human physical form and keep a low profile by only showing his peak universe venerable level power through his clones. Pu Thi continued that even though the Master had created the Flame God race, he was not very satisfied because it only improved basic talents without facilitating soul evolution. Therefore, the Master spent more time and effort to create the Earthling race with pure souls from birth. The Master even specifically created a heavenly technique in the form of a 9-volume manual to help the body develop to the level of a rare race in the universe. The combination of an extraordinary soul with the 9-volume manual was the best result that could be achieved. However, the laws of the universe rejected this manual and automatically erased the memories of anyone who tried to study it, except for the Master himself. To overcome this, the Master went alone and brought back a special treasure called the Heavenly Soul Crystal, which was able to protect the manual from the laws of the universe. This crystal turned out to be a piece of metal belonging to Luo Feng, which he obtained from Shu Xin and the Nashi race. Pu Thi revealed that the crystal only had one chance to pass on the technique, and as long as the recipient was still alive, the crystal could not pass it on to anyone else. This explains why there were only 3 candidates from the Earthling race, where the first and second candidates had fallen before the crystal could be passed on to Luo Feng as the third candidate. The harsh laws of the universe made something as special as the 9-volume manual very difficult to create, and could only have one living recipient at a time. The Master greatly valued both of his creations, but favored the Earthling race and had prepared special treasures for his 2 disciples. When Luo Feng asked about the Master's motivation, Pu Thi explained that at that level, the Master was already invincible in the universe and too lazy to care about invitations to become the leader of various great powers. Pu Thi then explained the power structure in the universe, including the 9-territory alliance formed by 100,000 races with more than 50 million immortal kings, more than 100,000 universe venerables, and more than 10 universe masters. Their power was no weaker than other alliances, such as the Hongmeng Alliance, which only had 3 million immortal kings. What made the Master so special was his ability to revive warriors at the Universe Master level, or lower, an ability that even the Chaos City Lord found difficult to perform. This made the alliance he led very powerful, because their Universe Venerables could continue to fight without fear of death. There are 6 peak races in the universe, each with their strongest warriors possessing similar abilities, such as the founder of the huge Axe Dojo organization. However, the Master is a unique form of life, the only one in the universe, and even though all the major alliances have tried to invite him as their leader, he chose to work alone with the specific goal of creating the Flame God and Earthling races. If Luo Feng succeeds in becoming the third disciple, his future will be limitless, and he can choose to remain on the side of the human race or break away to form his own power like the leader of the Flame God race. However, the prerequisite is that Luo Feng must not die like the previous 2 candidates, because if that happens, Pu Thi will have to wait for the 4th candidate for an immeasurable amount of time. Inside the magnificent temple, Pu Thi looked at Luo Feng and explained that he had passed many hidden tests before, and now there was only one last life or death path remaining. If successful, Luo Feng would become the true leader of the Earthling race and have the opportunity to become a superpower in the universe, potentially reaching the level of the Master, one of the most powerful beings in existence. The final challenge was to make the Star Tower recognize Luo Feng as its owner. Pu Thi explained that the Master was very skilled at creating treasures, and the Star Tower was one of the most powerful treasures in the universe, created by chance in a special secret area. However, the process of recognizing its owner was very difficult. The stronger the candidate's soul, the more terrifying the experience became. The Master had experimented on tens of thousands of warriors of various levels and found that only World Master warriors and below had a chance, while Universe Venerables and above had no chance at all because this process tested a person's soul and will. Pu Thai revealed that he could easily see through Luo Feng's soul and know that Luo Feng was still at the World Master level with the original body of the golden-horned behemoth monster, because the disguised treasure could only fool Universe Venerables but could not deceive Universe Masters. He warned that once the process began, there would be no way out, and even the powerful Chaos City Lord would not be able to save Luo Feng. If he failed, Luo Feng's determination and soul would be completely destroyed, and he would die. Even if he could be revived, his memories of the 9-volume manual would be lost forever because the laws of the universe did not allow him to be revived with the manual. All the evolutions gained from the manual and the ability to use the silver armor and gold armor would be lost, causing Luo Feng to lose his right to be the leader of the Earthling race. It is known that in the past, the first candidate survived 2,600 years before dying, while the second candidate only survived 3,300 years, proving how long and painful this process is. As Luo Feng prepared himself, Heavy Arrow contacted him through mental power and reported that Ku Wu had been killed by the demon race despite being warned about Tianzhen. An angry Luo Feng swore to kill Tianzhen but realized he had to pass this test first because if he failed, he would die. And even if he was revived without the silver armor and gold armor, it would be difficult to face Tianzhen. He ordered Heavy Arrow to leave the Star Tower and extraterritorial battlefield, waiting until he contacted him through the virtual universe. When Pu Thi began the process, he emphasized that it would be extremely painful and lengthy, then pointed to Luo Feng to begin the test. The crystal immediately flew out and touched Luo Feng, entering his mind and merging with the core of his soul hidden in the World Ring. This main core was the center of the 3 parts of his soul that controlled his human body, his Mosha body, and the soul of the golden-horned behemoth. At first, Luo Feng felt nothing and wondered if it would really be so painful, but suddenly, an incredibly terrifying pain attacked his 3 bodies and the main core of his soul, as if a beast was trying to crawl out of it. Pu Thi sat watching Luo Feng shivering in pain, hoping that this third candidate would succeed. Meanwhile, in the distance, within a huge flow of energy, the Master, a magnificent being over 90,000 kilometers tall, sat cross-legged, watching from afar toward the Star Tower, his eyes shining with anticipation, hoping that the third candidate would pass the test that had begun. The pain from his torn soul made Luo Feng's body tremble, but he realized that this pain was still much weaker than he had expected, roughly equivalent to the level when he absorbed the 110th Blood River Crystal. After thousands of years of training in the Blood River world, his pain threshold had increased dramatically, and now he had 165 crystals on the claws and right back of the golden-horned behemoth's body. Well, will the golden-horned behemoth's physique be similar to Godzilla's later, guys? It's really surprising. Although his body trembled slightly, he could still smile because he felt that his mental state, which had reached the first level of self-awareness, was strong enough to withstand this. However, he understood that the 3 levels of mental state differed primarily in the skills involved. The first level relied solely on pure strength and perseverance, akin to a rock against rushing water. The second level knew when to be soft and when to be hard, providing a strengthening effect ranging from 10 to hundreds of times. And the third level encompassed all aspects with a strengthening effect ranging from hundreds to thousands of times. The problem was that the process of merging these crystals had nothing to do with any technique. It all depended on one's perseverance and pain threshold because the pain came from within the soul itself, not from external attacks or illusions. As the Star Tower crystals slowly merged with his soul, the level of pain continued to increase over time. After 60 years had passed, the pain had doubled, and Luo Feng, who had initially been optimistic, began to worry because the rate of increase in pain was faster than expected. He realized he had to find a way to endure for more than 3,000 years and decided to temper his soul in the fastest way possible. Luo Feng remembered the teachings of his Chinese ancestors about having a true, pure, and honest heart in order to release one's soul. He he decided to immerse himself completely in studying the way of the beast god without letting the pain affect him. Although it sounded easy, maintaining a pure and true heart in the midst of intense pain was very difficult to do. However, gradually, he managed to put aside the pain and focus entirely on his training, where this solitude and purity of heart unleashed his soul's power and produced endless energy to survive. Hundreds of years later, Chaos City Lord tried to contact Luo Feng through the virtual world, but found that his disciple had closed the connection and left an automatic reply stating that he was training. The Chaos City Lord inquired with the Outer Region War System and learned that Luo Feng's last connection was at Star Tower hundreds of years ago, when the sealed star fell and 8,000 immortal kings at Star Tower died in a great battle that shook the universe. The Chaos City Lord did not realize that his disciple was facing a terrible ordeal and only sent an order to meet him immediately when he entered the virtual world. Meanwhile, with his soul under intense pain, Luo Feng immersed himself in studying the path of the beast god, and his consciousness and will grew at a rapid rate. After 1,000 years had passed, even though he had made great progress with his beast god presence reaching the equivalent of the 19th heaven bridge, the level of pain continued to exceed the growth of his soul and was reaching its limit. Luo Feng feared he would not make it through 2,000 years if this condition continued, because when the pain exceeded his limit, his consciousness and will would be destroyed, and the crystal would shatter his soul, causing him to die. However, with a pure and true heart free of distractions, he did not even sense the approaching danger and continued to immerse himself in his studies. The pain continued to increase beyond the crystal's absorption level of 165 and was very close to the limit of his ability. But as long as the pain did not completely affect his ability to learn, he remained immersed in the path of the beast god with a pure and true heart. After 2,000 years, the level of fusion between the crystal and Luo Feng's soul grew stronger, and the soul-tearing pain intensified until it reached the threshold where his soul would be completely torn apart. However, the closer he got to the limit, the more Luo Feng's focus helped sharpen his mental state. In the year 2600, Luo Feng sat cross-legged, drenched in sweat and blood, his entire body trembling, yet there was a strong sense of resolve in his expression, unshaken by the pain. Puthi, who was observing, recalled that the first candidate had endured 2,600 years with a strong innocence mental state, while the second candidate, who was slightly weaker than Luo Feng but had reached the encompassing all level, had endured 3,300 years before finally dying. Puthi reflected that the master had once said that the three levels of mental state were not actually higher or lower than each other, but rather represented three different paths. The first path, knowing oneself, was the most difficult because it relied solely on willpower, without any external factors, making people like this very stubborn and strong from within, even though they suffered easily. The second path, human and nature as one, made people earn the respect of many because they saw through the souls of trillions of lives, often considered saints in history. The third path, encompassing all, made people have big hearts with endless ambition, not satisfied with just following the flow but wanting to encompass everything. In Earth's history, many reached the peak of the first path, then changed to the second path after facing setbacks, became dissatisfied, and developed the third path to build countries or sects as the ultimate beings. Although the third path is considered the strongest and the first path the most difficult, great beings and absolute warriors know that comparing these paths is pointless because they are all different. In the year 2800, the level of pain finally reached Luo Feng's true limit and began to affect his studies. However, he still forced himself not to be affected and continued to immerse himself in studying the path of the beast god, pushing the pain aside whenever it interfered. This process created a mysterious energy and power that strengthened his heart faster than ever, allowing him to endure for 3,000 years. Puthi, who could see through Luo Feng's soul, realized he had reached his limit and sighed, hoping Luo Feng would just give up because the process was so difficult that even the fourth or fifth candidate might not succeed. However, Luo Feng howled and raged, and suddenly an extraordinary change occurred where his diamond-like consciousness and determination evolved to become denser like an atomic nucleus, giving him the strength to completely suppress the pain without resistance. Puthi was very surprised by this evolution because it had never happened to the previous two candidates, especially the second candidate, who had lasted 3,300 years. He realized that the previous two candidates had been wrong in their approach, where the first had merged with the pain and the second had encompassed even the pain, when in fact this was not an illusion but a crystal that truly merged with the soul. Meanwhile, Luo Feng chose to completely endure and suppress the pain without merging or encompassing it, which was a way of training the first level of self-knowledge by pushing his determination to the limit, resulting in a huge leap. This evolution gave Luo Feng a great chance to survive for 4,000 to 5,000 years. However, over the last 2,000 years, the ever-increasing pain finally brought him close to his limit again. Pu Thi became very worried because the previous longest candidate had only lasted 3,300 years, and no one knew how long this process would actually take. Even the master himself did not know the limit, making him wonder how many candidates would be needed to truly succeed if Luo Feng failed. After 5,000 years, Pu Thi, whose voice was old and full of worry, never imagined that this process would take so long, far exceeding the two previous candidates who only lasted 2,600 and 3,300 years. He could only hope that Luo Feng would succeed as he let out a long sigh that echoed throughout the temple. Meanwhile, in the virtual world of Black Dragon Mountain, specifically in 9-Star Bay, now exclusively used by the highest-ranking members of the Luofeng family, Xu Xin, as Luo Feng's wife and CEO of Pinghai Corporation, walked alongside two women. Over 10,000 years, her position and authority had grown so great that normal people did not dare to look at her. But her face was always filled with worry because her husband had been missing for 6,000 years without any news. Suddenly, her assistant informed her that there was a letter from Luo Feng, making the usually calm Xu Xin happy and confused. She read the long, emotional letter of tens of thousands of words about their life journey from when they first met to when they fell in love, making her smile even wider. However, her expression suddenly changed and her body shivered when she read the last part. She stood up fiercely and shouted that she didn't want her husband's guilt, tears almost flowing. Luo Ping and Luo Hai, their two sons, immediately rushed over with worried expressions because they had also received the letter. Xu Xin hugged her two sons while holding back her tears, explaining that their father was in a difficult situation but said he would return in the future, maybe in 10,000 years or even 10 million years, which was the limit of his lifespan. This letter had actually been arranged by Luo Feng to be sent automatically 6,000 years after he began his life or death inheritance, as he expected the entire process to last a maximum of 4,000 years based on the experience of previous candidates. Luo Feng was very worried that if he died and was only revived after 10 million years, his wife and family might already be dead. Therefore, he prepared this letter and left an account number with 50 billion Hun Yuan for his family. The entire Luo family gathered with deep sorrow, realizing that their main pillar, who had always protected the earth, was gone. Xu Xin warned in a hoarse voice that they were facing a major crisis because, without Luo Feng's power, their family would definitely become a target. She immediately contacted Luo Feng's teacher, Master Zhen Yan, to ask about his disciple. Master Zhen Yan, who was an absolute warrior, immediately understood that even though Luo Feng was dead, in the future Luo Feng would be revived, and immediately rushed to the residence of the Chaos City Lord to request a visit. However, the Chaos City Lord confirmed that Luo Feng was still alive and had been in the Star Tower for the past 6,000 years, although he was not connected to the virtual network. It was likely that he was experiencing some problems that normally occur in dangerous places like the Star Tower, where even Universe Masters did not dare to mess around. Inside the Star Tower temple surrounded by the sealed star, Luo Feng sat on the floor covered in blood, his body trembling in pain. Although his regeneration as a World Master was very strong, he continued to bleed due to the intense pain from his soul, which was almost destroyed everywhere. Pu Thi, who was observing, could not imagine how Luo Feng had managed to survive for 400 years after reaching his limit in the year 5,600. The pain in Luo Feng's soul had reached a point where he could no longer suppress it and could not learn the way of the beast god. His consciousness clung to a single thread while resisting the tearing of his soul. The only thing keeping him alive was a single thought about his family, namely the desire to see his parents, siblings, and wife again without having to be revived to a time when they were all gone. His soul began to shatter, but his formless will forced it back together. Amidst the struggle between collapse and reformation, the single thought of his family kept him together while the crystal continued to fuse and tear at his soul until it was almost completely destroyed. Luo Feng could barely think, as his soul was on the brink of collapse. The only thought keeping his soul intact was his desire to reunite with his family. Pu Thi, who saw the state of Luo Feng's soul with his power as the ruler of the universe, began to take care of this child and sighed, asking him to just give up because he was too tired after fighting for 6,000 years, even though he had only been alive for 10,000 years. In the eyes of Pu Thi, who had lived a very long life since ancient times following his master, Luo Feng's struggle was indeed very touching. Luo Feng's body trembled unconsciously as he let out a sound, and fresh blood flowed, almost like a fish on the beach that was about to die but still struggling, because it couldn't die that easily even though it knew it would be revived in the end. Pu Thi looked at Luo Feng, who could fall at any moment, and admitted that this young man was very impressive for having survived more than 6,000 years, far surpassing the first candidate, who had survived 2,600 years, and the second candidate, who had survived 3,300 years. He questioned why the Star Tower inheritance was so difficult while staring at Luo Feng, who was shivering and unconscious. This was the second life-changing event for Luo Feng after the first, when he sacrificed his soul against the golden-horned behemoth, and fate made him possess that beast and start a new life as a battle genius prodigy until he earned the nickname King Blade River. Now he was fighting on the thin line between life and death, where love and affection for his family made him fight hard to pull himself to the side of life even though the wind of death continued to blow towards him. However, every thought had its limits, and if the inheritance continued, his soul would continue to be torn apart even more until finally those limits were exceeded. Suddenly, the entire Star Tower, 9 light-years high, shook violently, startling the countless immortal king inside who did not know what was happening. At the same time, in a very distant, dangerous area, a great old man over 90,000 kilometers tall, who was the master, sat on a large throne, and suddenly his expression changed when he looked far away at the Star Tower. He smiled happily because after 1 trillion years of waiting, the Earthling race had finally produced an extraordinary warrior who had successfully passed the Star Tower's process of recognizing its owner. Then suddenly, he got up and disappeared from view. Pu Thi looked shocked at Luo Feng, who had stopped shivering because he felt that after 6,902 years, the crystal had finally completely merged with Luo Feng's soul. The fusion was successful, and fate had been decided. If Luo Feng did not have a strong heart to endure the pain for so long until he underwent evolution 3,200 years ago, he would not have survived another 3,000 years. And even with that evolution, if he had not held on to his mind for the last nearly 500 years, this miracle would not have happened. Luo Feng opened his eyes, extremely tired but happy, his world energy flushing all the blood from his body as he thought that he had succeeded and could return to his family. Extreme exhaustion followed in his soul and consumed his consciousness until he suddenly fell and lay motionless on the ground, fast asleep from pushing his soul far beyond the limits of a world master. Luo Feng slept for more than 9 years with a smile on his face as if dreaming of happy things, and at this moment beside him were 2 terrifying universe rulers watching the scene. When his eyes slowly opened after his soul had completely recovered, he heard the same warm voice as the one from the black metal board, causing him to immediately stand up and turn around. He saw Pu Thi sitting cross-legged, guarding his power, and in front of him stood a huge silhouette 900 meters tall, wearing green armor with 2 horns piercing his forehead, staring at Luo Feng. The vast life energy of this creature engulfed the entire temple and far exceeded that of both Pu Thi and the Chaos City Lord, shocking Luo Feng because he could not sense any laws of the universe, as if this great creature's energy was powerful enough to push those laws away. Luo Feng realized that this individual was the mysterious figure who was able to create the 9-volume manual that contradicted the laws of the universe. The great being congratulated him with a booming voice, saying that from now on, Luo Feng led the Earthling race and had the right to become the absolute warrior of the universe, while Pu Thi also smiled and called him his 3rd junior while congratulating him. So what happens next? Let's wait and see in the next video, guys. Okay, thank you for watching until the end, and don't forget to support this channel with likes, subscribe, and comments. That's all from me. Bye.